Let's say you're ready to really start reducing your environmental footprint, but with limited time and limited resources, you're not sure which decision to focus on that would have the biggest impact. Should I buy organic? Should I buy local? Plastic-free? Should I buy meat-free? While all of these are important things to think about, the one decision you make that has the biggest impact on the environment isn't any of these. It's, should I buy? Period. Well, question mark. Because our ever-growing consumption is the biggest driver of environmental problems like climate change. And if you want to get serious about reducing your environmental footprint, then reducing your consumption is the most important decision you can make. Now I know what you're thinking. Isn't overpopulation the real problem? Not really, and here's why. Now, while the world's population is growing, in fact, we recently reached a whopping 8 billion people on the planet. The rate of that growth has been steadily declining since the 1970s, and it's predicted that by the late 21st century, the population will peak somewhere around 11 billion people. Of course, that's a large number, a lot of people and a lot of resources that they need, but the story is a little more complicated than that. More than half of the world's population growth will come from countries in sub-Saharan Africa, which is actually the part of the world with the lowest carbon footprint. Now, the part of the world that has comparatively low birth rates is responsible for the majority of the climate impacts, mainly due to their consumption. The wealthiest 10% of the world's population are responsible for 50% of the global carbon footprint, whereas the poorest 50% of the entire global population is only responsible for around 10% of the global carbon footprint. So how much we spend, how much we consume is directly related to our environmental impact. Basically, we could reach peak population and still be able to live within the ecological bounds of our planet if all of us were consuming at the rate of, say, an average Kenyan. But if all of us were consuming at the rate of an average American, well, it's the overconsumption of the wealthy few and not the overpopulation of the poor many that's at the root of our environmental problems. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but what about green consumption? Green technology and green products can certainly help reduce the harms of our consumption, but we don't get around the fact that we cannot solve our environmental problems without an overall reduction in the amount of things that we consume. That's because green technology and green products still have an environmental impact. Nuclear energy, for example, produces radioactive waste. Electric vehicles need rare earth minerals. Green products still impact the environment at every step of the supply chain. Sure, they may have a smaller environmental impact compared to their conventional alternatives, but if we scale up their use large enough, then we'll still run into our planetary limits even with green technology. So the takeaway here is that everything is unsustainable when overexploited, and reducing our consumption has to be a part of any green technology solution. And then there's the idea called the rebound effect, and this describes the fact that improvements from greener or newer technology are often lower than expected, because once the technology reduces the cost of using a resource, and that can be the environmental costs or financial costs or time costs. But once the costs are reduced, then consumers typically respond by increasing their consumption of either that product or other products, essentially offsetting the gains from the improved technology. An example of this would be if someone switched to a more fuel-efficient car and then as a result used the car more often, drove more because of the fuel savings. A related concept is called the negative footprint illusion. Now, this describes a scenario where a consumer might buy an environmentally friendly product and as a result become less sensitive to how much of the product they use. So while you might choose a more planet-friendly option, the fact that you use much more of the product or buy it more frequently results in the same or higher environmental impact. There's even a study comparing the relative environmental footprints of people that consumed consciously versus people that just consumed less, either because they hate spending money, tightwadism, or they love saving money, frugality, or they just rejected materialism, voluntary simplicity. Now, this study found that people that were tightwads actually had the smallest environmental footprint, but the conscious consumers, well, people that identified as conscious consumers actually increased their environmental footprint. The takeaway here is that if you have to choose, reducing your consumption is much better for the environment than improving the quality of the things that you consume. That's why buy less always comes before buy better. And the final reason why reducing your consumption should be your most important priority is a practical one. As a consumer, you have little direct control over all of the decisions made along the supply chain, and actually very little information about the effects of your products at different stages, beyond what nice green stories companies like to tell you. And here's an unfortunate secret about sustainable initiatives from a lot of companies. Sometimes they're just greenwashing, but you do have full direct control over whether to make a consumption decision in the first place. So that means that reducing your consumption is both a solution that has a pretty significant environmental impact, but it's also something that you directly influence, making it a really great place to start if you want to get serious about reducing your environmental footprint. So you're convinced that we need to focus on reducing our consumption. Then the question is how? How do we actually do it? Especially when we live in a world where our economies are built up around ever-growing consumption and we're being nudged into buying something at every turn. That's a big question, and one that we explore in other videos on this channel. So check those out if you're interested in practical tools and strategies to help you reduce your consumption. And I'll see you in the next video.